All right, guys. So we've all been witnesses to this. A friend, family buying or selling gets an offer prior to the auction. So the vendor gets an offer prior to the auction. Good offer. Doesn't sell it. We're going to go through a real life scenario in a property we just sold at auction this weekend. Stay tuned.
There we go. Real life example.
Wow. And you know what? This auction scenario is animal. I was talking with some real estate friends about it yesterday. Worldwide, the way we conduct auctions, our processes are tight, they are lean, they are mean. In America, they can't run a process like this because of their escrow system and building inspections and stuff like that. But we can in Australia. So we're going to talk about a real life auction scenario where offer came in prior. Billy, this is your campaign.
Yeah, tale of the sale for 10 at 38 Stanley Road in Epping. Really, a really interesting campaign because it was out of area for us as well. So we, not only dealing with, my first proper auction, from start to end, but also out of area, which is great. It meant, we're meeting lots of fresh faces, learning a lot about a new suburb, which was awesome. And just really great to have the opportunity to sell a great townhouse. A beautiful family bought it in the end.
Now, before we get into the details of the offers that came in prior to the auction, I do want to say the auction was a tough auction. I've never seen such poker face and such resistance to make the first offer, which was actually, it sold for 149, but the people were reluctant to start the auction at $1 million or 1.1, like 400 grand away. I was gobsmacked. I've never seen, long time real estate agent, never seen such a hard start.
It was interesting, and I think it's always really interesting for the selling agent to be in the room when they know they've got bodies there that have, expressed interest much higher than where that opening bid was made. So to take it from the beginning, massive numbers throughout the campaign, over 300 inquiries, 150 people through the door. So there was a great, really, really good conversion rate. People actually making that first inquiry to coming through for an inspection. 4-week campaign. Access was really, really easy. So we had Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday open homes, 3 opens a week, every week. And if people were needing in private appointments, we would always offer. But we also had some really good virtual inspections as well. So there's lots of videos being sent out. So that really helped, just get people through at times that suited them. And
also from the top, this was a townhouse. It was in Epping. It was 3 bedrooms. It was over 3 levels. So it had on the lowest level the double garage. It had a bedroom and a lounge room on the middle level with a courtyard, 2 bedrooms upstairs. Totally original, as in it needed a lot of money spent on it. Kitchens, bathrooms, paint, carpet needed to be done. But you had a really good offer come in early, and owner didn't accept it.
Yeah. So we didn't have a price guide on this property in the marketing. We were referring back to some recent sales because it was a very tricky one to price. In that area, a lot of those homes are quite often new builds. You're comparing with, you're competing with, some really fantastic apartments as well, big apartments. So we were very much, in the hands of the buyer feedback, and that started to sort of correlate around the 1.4 million mark. So we had an offer at 1.4, and that firmed up with a second party at 1.42. So there was two groups there. 1.4 was about the market feedback.
And Billy, what was the owners like when you sat across from the owner? What were they sort of? What would be their dream silly price that they thought? What would be like that's the last price I'd sell at? What was the bottom and the top of their price expectations?
1.5 was the dream. 1.5 million was the dream, and I think we knew from the start that was going to be, a really great result if we got there on the day. But I said to to the vendor, we just don't know where the feedback's going to come in until we get the buyers through, because it's such a big home. It's got so many things going for it, but we also know it needs, some money spent on it. It needs a bit of love.
And was the owner tempted to take those offers that came in during the campaign? And then again, they were the highest offers. They were within your range of your opinion. Was the owner tempted at all?
It wasn't. No, the short answer would be no. Didn't jump at it, and I think there was a lot of trust there as well, though. And I think, on the day we knew if there was feedback in the room at 1.4, the best way to maximise the sale price was really just to see where the market ends up seeing value on the day. And the fairest way to do that was to run it through to auction on the day, because if you have multiple groups at 1.4, 1.42, and you start doing an auction before an auction, it does get a bit messy. And so it was much more transparent to let everyone kind of see where the market is on the day.
And was the buyer frustrated when you said no to the offer?
No, they fortunately were able to attend the auction in the end. They were a bit worried that they wouldn't be able to begin with, but I think if you're making an offer pre-auction and the vendor is not looking to accept it, that there's often more than one reason why that might be, and it's just trying to sort of coach everyone through that process. There's definitely ways to manage it.
And did one of the off makers end up buying it?
No, new party.
Yeah, no way. Party.
Yeah, so there was 5 registered bidders on the day.
Yep.
Five registered bidders, for an auction is near the golden number. The golden number, from what we've been told, is six registered bidders. There to buy a property on the day guarantees you about a 97% chance of selling your property.
Love that.
So that's a number from a top auctioneer calling auctions all around the country gave us that number. So six registered bidders is kind of what we're working to, but it's just about trying to make people's life easy and getting everyone in a fair position to buy the property. So that that's what it's all about.
Now this is the hardest, and honestly, this buzzes your brain to think that there's 5 registered people. There's people there that are willing to pay 1.4, 1.5 for a property. A couple of buyers were at that level, and to think that no one wanted to put their hand up. And I know Luke said he watched the auction. Like, to think to yourself, why wouldn't you put your hand up to make the first bid at all? Like at $1 million, at 1.1, at 1.2. I know it started finally at 1.1, but why the hell wouldn't someone just go like that?
It was really funny when we were actually working the floor and walking around. Everyone was telling me, I'm going to wait for someone else to start. And I said, but you understand what happens if we don't start? And everyone was nodding.
It was the biggest poker face thing. It was the biggest poker face tournament I have ever seen in an auction. And everyone was like, but everyone obviously had the money. Everyone was ready, willing and able, because plenty of people, I think all 4 of them put their hands up anyway to bid during the auction, but no one wanted to make a start. Now, if you watched last Monday, we interviewed a professional auctioneer, Gavin Reynolds, and he talks about if you are taking the opportunity to bid at the auction, your odds are greater if you part. If there is some magic in it, where with that participation just lubricates, allows you to start, gets going, like turns the cogs, and no one wanted to.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think Vic said the same thing 88 times. Buyers didn't flinch. It was really, really interesting to watch. Quite nervous, I have to say. That I was, I might have been just smiling there in the end. But yeah, it's always sort of nervous. But it's reassuring, obviously, to know that you've got people in the room that have expressed interest to buy the property.
And I had a couple of comments on the live that I've also got to mention. People were saying, why would you bid on your own bid? Because what actually happened is when it got to 145, the second highest bidder stopped. And then the highest bidder increased their bid on top of their bid in a live auction to 147.
148.
And then they bid on top of their own bid to 149. And I think people were in the room going, why would you increase your offer on top of your offer on top of your offer? Can you explain that?
Well, sometimes the highest bid is not in a position to buy the property still. So on the day the vendor sets a reserve price, that's obviously confidential between the selling agent, the auctioneer, and the vendor. But in simple terms, an increased bid on the floor in front of the rest of the competition got our buyer to a point where they were able to call the property on the market and buy the property. And I think in this instance, the buyer was quite happy to do that and secure the property, particularly on the floor, because it meant there was no more negotiations post auction, and it was under auction conditions. They were very happy with an unconditional sale, and they just wanted to try and get it done. So that was the way that we sort of navigated around that. But yeah, it is a very common question you would get. Ultimately, it's just trying to sort of bridge both parties together to a point where everyone's happy.
Now, they increased, so anyone who's just tuned in, we're talking about the auction we had on Epping. We talked about what a poker face started was. I've never seen something like it. We're talking about buyers, offers that came in prior to the auction and the owner not accepting them. Now, what was interesting, with the reserve set at 1.5, I thought when we came to the owner with a 1.45 and said, that is it, the buyers will not increase anymore, no one will go up anymore, I would have thought the owner would have said sell.
Well,
at 1.45.
The interesting thing is, for the viewers watching this morning, thanks for tuning in. We're talking about a vacant property here as well. A property that the vendor is no longer living in, and no one ever wants to give their property away. Everyone's got a price at which they're happy to release the property. But for people, that's different when they're living in the home and it's the family home and they're not needing to move. We've recently had a home like that go out to market, where the vendor was in a position that they can quite comfortably hold on to the property. It's almost like a bit more opportunistic selling. And then there's homes that must be sold for sometimes unfortunate reasons and sometimes reasons again just at a price.
But I think that won the owner more money. I think that owner could have got themselves 40 grand more by negotiating hard, saying I'm not going to put it on the market, negotiating with that highest bidder. It got them 40 grand more by those techniques that we used and the owner used. And obviously the buyer was wanted to secure it under the hammer. It was theirs. So they put their bid on top of their bid. They got it. Congratulations to the guys that bought it. Lovely people.
Beautiful couple, yeah. Lovely couple.
And that's the tale of the sale, Billy Bob.
That's it. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention here is just show you some of the broader stats for Sydney just before we let you go. So 73% auction clearance rates for Saturday. It was 55% this time last year. So talk about a change in market, and talk about, you know, numbers that speak volumes about, you know, more than just what the agent believes. That's fact. You know, there's a big change in clearance rates there.
That's
It was
huge.
massive. Yeah, massive. 613 auctions called across Sydney. Yeah, there's the numbers behind you, you know, as they drop down, but 271 sold, 62 withdrawn, 40 passed in. You know, there's some big numbers there. So that's Sydney.
And to put things into perspective for people, there's distinctly three different types of markets. At any one time, it can be a seller's market, which means it's going gangbusters. You know, prices are going up, values are going up of property. There's a buyer's market, which is, it's a really hard time to sell a property. Properties are sitting on the market a long time, and prices are going down. So in 2022, prices went down as much as probably 10%. There was a correction, maybe 15% in the market. Then there's what I call a balanced market. It's just level. You know, prices aren't going up, they're going down. 73%, this number here, is starting to push towards a seller's market, pushing towards capital growth. I was with a whole bunch of real estate agents yesterday at Josh Tesselin's baby shower, and a lot of the guys were saying that they've seen about 10 to 15% growth this year, and that number definitely supports it when you look at clearance rates that high.
Yeah, Luke did mention a good comment there. A little bit worried about unreported numbers. It's interesting because with an auction, doesn't matter really how it sells. Sometimes they're still reporting a sale, but not quite the same way as you might think. So there's basically 30% chance it's going to sell prior to auction, 30% chance it will sell under the hammer, and then 30% chance it will sell post auction. Now, sometimes these can get all wrapped up into one. Sometimes they disappear into thin air altogether and pop up as sold next week, private treaty. So it's a bit interesting, but those are the best numbers we've got. That's from Domain, who track everything.
Have a great week.
See you, Mark.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's. And if you know anyone that's buying for auction, give them this session to watch, because I think it just gives people a bit of depth about the activities prior to an auction, during an auction.
See you later. Peace out.
Love you. See you. Bye.